It's Locked On Giants Live with special guest Sam Prince. We're going to take your questions. We're going to talk Giants, and we're going to have fun like we always do. That's coming your way next.
You are Locked On Giants, your daily New York Giants podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Today's episode of the Locked On Giants podcast is presented by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is daily fantasy made easy. Pick 2 to 6 players, and if they score more or less than their Prize Picks projection, you can win up to 25 times the amount of your money on your entry. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with the promo code Locked On. That's prizepicks.com, promo code Locked On. What is up, everybody? Welcome to Locked On Giants Live. I'm Patricia Traynor, your host, and I want to thank you all for tuning in. I am joined, as promised, by the one and only Sam Prince. I am so excited to have him on the program. Been wanting to have him on, but he's so popular. To get him has just been so tricky. But Sam, thank you so much for coming on the pod with me. So good to see you.
Of course. So great to be on. Let's talk some Giants.
All right, awesome. We're going to talk Giants. We've got a lot to talk about. We're going to take your questions. So feel free to start putting them into the program. What we're going to do is we're going to try and incorporate them a little bit better than what I've been doing the last couple of Locked On Live. And we'll just put them on the screen and we'll do the best we can. But before we get into it, folks, I got to issue a heartfelt appreciation to all of you. Last month, in the month of January, the Locked On Giants podcast finished as the number 3 YouTube show in the Locked On NFL network. Number 3. I set new records, folks, and I owe it all to you. I cannot thank you all enough for, popping on Locked On Live, checking out the recorded interviews, the feedback, the community. You guys are just so awesome. And it really means a lot to me that, I was able to top some of the bigger shows that in the past I've kind of fallen behind. So I don't know. Will this month bring number 1? Will I be able to jump past a couple of the shows that are ahead of me? We'll see. But thank you. Thank you so much for making Locked On Giants your first listen every day. Or if you watch on YouTube, your first watch every day, as always. All right, let's get into stuff. Sam, New York Giants 2022. How surprised were you with what the Giants were able to do?
I was shocked. I thought this team was going to win 6 games maximum, going to playoffs and getting a win in the wild card round, but unfortunately losing to the divisional round. I was upset at first with the season because it hurts. You lose in the playoffs, especially against your arch rival, the Philadelphia Eagles. But I look back at this season. I'm very proud of the guys, what they've accomplished, but hopefully it's only moving up from here.
You got to love the job that Dable did. Now, I know, you were able to, going back to calling the draft pick, the first round of the draft pick, which I'm sure was the thrill of your year. But you were able to be around the facility. You were at practices. I used to see you at practices. You get better views than the media, which was pretty cool. Good for you. So, I mean, what did you think of Brian Dable and the coaching staff, just the whole vibe you got from them?
I was impressed. We go from a terrible head coach in Joe Judge with a potential coach of the year in Brian Dable, not potential, who is the coach of the year in Brian Dable, who is just a culture change. The players want to play for Dabes.
Yeah, they definitely do. And, the thing that struck me about Dable is just how he's like a regular guy. And it's like he's not scripted. He's not, rehearsed. And I think I've told this story on the pod before. If I haven't, I'll tell it again. A couple of weeks ago when we were on a conference call with him, I always call head coaches, I call them coach because it's a title they earn. And Dable he interrupted me. He goes, "Patty, call me Dave's." And I'm okay. Yeah. So I just laughed. But he's such a down to earth guy. And I've also told the story before, I'm sure. When I had COVID over the summer, he took time out of training camp to give me a call to see how I was doing, as did Joe Shane. By the way, they both checked in on me to see how I was doing. which I thought was pretty cool. So just the whole atmosphere, and you can speak to this because you've been places in that building that we don't get to go. It's very much like a family atmosphere, wouldn't you say?
It is. And when I went to meet Joe Shane and Dable, I mean, I was just like, oh my gosh, I got to meet Joe Shane and Brian Dable. When I was walking into that room, I was like, okay, Sam, you gotta keep your cool. You can't like super fanboy, which I did fanboy. I was like, I see Joe. I was like, oh, he's like, he doesn't introduce himself like this is Coach Dable. No, they introduce him as Dave's. It's not a coach, it's Dave's, which is so unique, which you may not think would work, but it works for them.
Yeah, it definitely does. And that environment, that loose environment, it's kind of like it's a family environment. Look, no disrespect to Joe Judge. I think he tried to instill that environment, but just
You can't make players run laps if you don't run with them.
true. Good point. Good point.
Why are you going to listen to someone who hasn't accomplished anything in the NFL? Becoming a special teams head coach, which, yes, that's very hard to get. But if if you're saying run laps, you have to have success and pedigree to do that without just bossing people around. The only coaches in the league that can do that right now is Belichick, coach, and maybe and Andy Reid. That's it.
Good point. That's a good point. I mean, Joe was a bit of a tough guy.
Terrible play caller. That was one of the worst head coaches. That was the worst head coach in Giants history. And I will argue he is in the top 10 worst head coaches of all time.
Really?
I was a huge Joe Judge fan going into the 2021 season. I mean, we all kind of bought that, but then watching those preseason games, I'm like, oh no. Why do I have some negativity in me? But then it was after the Broncos game, I'm like, yeah, he's not the head coach of the future.
Very perceptive. I mean, I think we were all kind of fooled a little bit by, the rah-rah speech coming in. And then also there was a little bit of progress in that first year, and then it all fell apart. The wheels came off. And what struck me about Joe Judge is how when he talked about, the failure that he had experienced, which I think at the time he was with the Patriots and they still had a winning record. And I'm like, you don't know what failure is. So,
Yeah. I mean, you coach for Alabama too. You don't have failure.
Yeah. But anyway, he's
gone. You don't have to worry.
He's in the past. Dable is here. Shane is here. What about the coordinators? The job done by Wink and Kafka. I mean, are you as impressed as I am with just how creative they have been?
I remember I was talking to one of my friends when this is before my wish was granted. I was like, when they're hiring Dave, I'm like, could you imagine if they hire Wink? Could you imagine if they hire Wink? I still can't believe Wink Martindale is our defensive coordinator. Mike Kafka, I do believe in the next 2 to 3 years that he will become a head coach in this league, whether Giants fans like it or not. He's gone for second interview for the Colts and the Cardinals, and I believe Wink is also going for the Colts. I don't think the Cardinals too. I don't think they both get head coaching gigs, but I think the year after next, Kafka's going to become a head coach in this league.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you on that. It's interesting because if you remember, Wink actually interviewed for the head coaching job during the cycle when they hired Judge. So it could have been,
I don't know if Wink Martindale is a head coaching material. I think he's such a great defensive mind. I don't know if he can translate over to the offense. I don't think he can run plays. I think he's a great defensive coordinator, and I think some coaches are just good coordinators, and that's what they should be.
I don't know. I mean, I think Wink might make for a good head coach, but I'm not telling the Colts people that because I don't want Wink to go.
Yeah, no, yeah.
I told them he's terrible. You don't want
him. No, but I'm a Wink fan. I think he's a great defensive coordinator. Maybe he'll prove me wrong, but I think this is such an offensive league where 95% of the time, a good head coach now is a good OC.
Right. You're right. And look, if you're going to hire a defensive-minded coach, you got to have a good offensive coordinator in mind. And I don't know who Wink would have in mind. You'd have to go back and I guess and trace along his path. But speaking of the path, what I love about the coaching staff that Dable put together is that it wasn't all his buddies. He actually thought outside the box, brought in the best candidates, the best teachers he could find. And when you look at what they were able to do with talent, with the talent they had and what they didn't have, wow, right? I mean, do you agree?
Yeah. I thought the Giants OC was going to be Ken Dorsey, but obviously became the OC and for the Bills, which he deserved that role. But I was like, oh, maybe they'll get Mike Kafka. They got Mike Kafka. It was weird because it was every coordinator that was 1 or 2 on your list you got. For the Giants fans, that would never happen before with Judge, Sherber, McAdoo, and etc.
Yeah, I can tell you right now, I was not a Shermer fan. I knew why
I like Sherber when he got hired.
I know why they hired him, but the more I saw him in action, I was like, nah, this guy,
they hired him because of what's it called?
The quarterback, because he was a quarterback whisperer.
Yeah, because of Keenum. That's why I wanted to hire because of that.
Yeah, I mean,
that's why I thought there was more to the story, but I was like, no, there's not.
Yeah, I mean, it made sense at the time because they drafted Jones, in 2019. They also had Davis Webb, I think, at the time. They were looking to groom Eli's successor, and Shermer just terrible. I'm sorry.
I don't think he was good. I don't think he was terrible.
I didn't care for him. Just the things that I would hear around the building and just the way I used to see things. I'm like, not. Look, I mean, you like to think that, all right, he didn't work out in Cleveland. Well, neither did Belichick when Belichick was the head coach in Cleveland all those years ago for a couple seasons. And he went on and he became, one of the greatest head coaches in the NFL, in this generation. So, I mean, Shermer, you hope that he would get better, and it just didn't pan out. But in Dable, I think they finally got it right with Dable, and even if coaches,
it's been 1 year, but let's knock on wood.
Yes, knock on, and we'll talk about that because obviously we're all riding high on year 1.
I have began my free agent list. We'll talk about that later. But if you're talking about coordinators, does Shea Tierney stay, or does he become the Bucs OC? Because I've been seeing a lot of rumors that he becomes the Bucs OC, and they're interviewing for that job.
Yep. But you know what? If he does, I would not be surprised if Davis Webb gets that job, which makes
I was going to say that, Patty.
Which makes sense. Yes.
I would, as much as I would like Shea, I think if Davis Webb becomes your quarterback coach, I'm totally fine with that.
Yep, as would I be. I mean, and if Shea doesn't get that job, maybe they find a quality control role for Davis Webb. I'd like to see Davis stay here because, look, a lot of people don't realize this, but he was so instrumental in helping that offense get off to a running start. And again, you were there. You got to watch and stand on the sidelines during training camp, up close and hear all the interaction and stuff. And I'm sure you witnessed some of this interaction and how the player Davis Webb was coaching guys up and everything like that. And I know Daniel has spoken about it.
He was a coach.
Yes, Davis is a good dude. I was glad that he came back and was able to pick up where he left off. And I was glad that he got his start. And that's the other thing I like about about Dable and Shane. Throughout the year, they gave guys rewards for their contributions, like on the practice squad. Oh, you've been helping us all year long. We're going to elevate you so you get a full salary as opposed to a practice squad salary. I thought that was a really, really underrated but classy move on their part.
It just shows how great they are.
What a difference, right? What a difference in the just the overall atmosphere. Sam, I want to go back to your experience when you were when you went to I think it was Las Vegas. Yeah, it was Las Vegas, and you got to call out the Thibodeau, and I believe you also did Evan Neal, if I'm not mistaken.
I did not do Evan Neal.
You didn't do it.
A lot
You
of
did
people
Thibodeau.
say,
but you met him. You got to meet both of them.
I only got to do one, but I'm so grateful for that.
Tell us about Thibodeau. What is he really like? I know you hung out with him for a little bit. You really got to experience him. Some people feel that he's all flash, no substance. I can give my perspective, but what
I'll
do
hear
you
your
think of him?
perspective. I'll tell mine.
What's that?
I'll tell mine, but I want to hear yours too.
I think he's a very intelligent guy. I think he's no nonsense. Very polished as far as his media savvy is concerned. People were saying, they were criticizing him for knocking Foles out and the celebration stuff that I kind of thought was a little overblown. But, I like the guy. I really do. And I think there's a side of him, I would love to talk to him about his foundation. We weren't able to connect for that, but I just think there's a whole nother side of him that people don't see that, it's just, I don't want to say humanizes him, but just it's another side that if you think he's all flash and no substance, you're wrong, because there's this other side of him that you don't see often.
When we sleep, he works. Thibodeau is a great dude. He's a very energetic, flashy guy. You see what you get with him. That's who he is. He's a flashy guy. He wants to win really badly. He stopped playing video games, I believe in high school. He said in an interview. I don't remember what interview, because it was too much of a distraction for him. And he needed to learn more football. Like, you don't just say that to say that. He plays a lot of chess in the locker room. And chess helps him think on the football field. Yeah, Kayvon maybe only got 4 sacks this year, but the amount of pressure that they won, you could make an argument without Kayvon Thibodeau, the Giants don't make the playoffs. He wins you 3 games last year. And I think he's going to keep on winning you at 4 or 5 games a year. That's just how good he is. That's just the potential. It's still shocking looking back at that draft that he fell down to number 5.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm with you on that. People, they get so wrapped up in the sacks, and sacks are great, but how many times did he disrupt things? I mean, I lost track.
A lot.
I mean, there were a lot.
Patty, I think still I would like to see a little more sacks from him.
Sure.
But, I mean, look at Hassan Reddick. He's got 20 sacks including postseason, and he's disrupting the passer. I like my sacks.
Yeah, I mean, look, that's the end game. But you know what? If he's creating sack opportunities for, say, Dexter Lawrence or somebody else,
I'm okay with that.
I'll take that.
I'll take that. If his pressure gets to a sack or an incompletion or an interception, that's great.
Yes. Now, did you have him on your pod? I know you have a podcast.
Not yet. I'm in the works.
You'll probably get him before I get him, which would be kind of cool.
Works.
But by the way, tell people about your pod, because I know a lot of people aren't familiar.
All right, let's do this. Prince of the Pod. How do we take a little break? I was doing some stuff, but we're back. We got some stuff coming up. I don't want to reveal everything because nothing's official. You just don't want to say it till it's final. But we'll be releasing on my Twitter. If you don't already follow me on Twitter, I'll be releasing episodes on Twitter and Instagram. SamThePrince14.
Nice.
This podcast is called Prince on the Pod. Some people that we've had on it was Jordan Rodon. We've had Andrew Thomas, and we've had Nick Gates. We've also had former Giants player Kevin Booth, and we've also had a star Stephen Baker, TD Baker, touchdown Baker himself. We've also had NFL Network star Colleen Wolfe on it.
Wow. Your guest list is more impressive than mine. I
still think Eli's pretty cool.
Well, I was fortunate enough to get Eli. I love Eli. Eli's like when I have him on.
Guests coming up, it's in the works. I don't want to tell too much away, but
boo. Well, that's awesome. I mean,
you'll be seeing a big Twitter announcement coming out soon.
Oh, okay. Well, we'll have to have people follow you. We'll put it in the show notes here. Sam, let's get back to talking about the Giants. Now, obviously, off season's here. Boo. I know. We wish we were in the Super Bowl here, but some big decisions, the Daniel Jones contract, the Saquon Barkley
All right.
contract.
All right.
We got to go there. I'm sorry.
We're gonna get to Saquon talk now. I was
Let's
eventually.
get it over with. Where do you stand on these?
I love Saquon as a person, a player, stand-up dude. He is a very down-to-earth, super nice. Isn't even a nice word. Caring guy. But I gotta put my journalist hat on here. I gotta put a non-bias. I gotta put a GM role, like shirt on here. I gotta take off this and put this on.
I love it.
That was I was wearing that earlier, but to put the Giants hat on. Does a star running back win you a Super Bowl? I don't know. They don't. They don't. You don't pay a running back big money. But Saquon's different, though. Saquon's different.
How so?
I would pay him for over 3 years in between 12 and 13.5 a year.
Oh, I like that.
Would not do 14 million over 3 years. Because you're then gonna have to pay Daniel Jones $35 to $40 million, which he does not. I don't personally think no, I don't think that is the right amount of money for him. That's the problem. Daniel Jones, look, that's the problem with the quarterback market now. It's such a scarce position where if a quarterback, like let's just say Derek Carr, which I think Derek Carr is a little better than Daniel Jones. This is a couple. I know he had a bad season, but I'm a big Derek Carr fan. You have a quarterback like Derek Carr who's not going to win you the Super Bowl, but it's going to get you to the divisional round. And I'm not saying Daniel Jones is not going to the Super Bowl. He hasn't proved it to me yet. He's had one good year under a good coaching staff, which shows you a lot of promise. But back to that point, that's what he's getting paid because he's a quarterback in this league.
Yeah.
I'm a little scared if you pay that much of money. Yes, it's only 2 to 3 years. You're stuck with him. Look, I think he can hopefully win you a Super Bowl, knock on wood. But honestly, I would tag him. Or, well, you want to talk about my dream off season with those two players, Patty? Sign Saquon to it. Tag Saquon and sign Jones to a 2-year, $25 million a year.
Might be a little low.
$25 to $30 million. Let's just say you give him 30. You save that 10 extra million. You don't know if Saquon can repeat his year because running backs get banged up.
Yeah.
And you're not investing all that money. And I look at the teams that are winning Super Bowls. Look at the Eagles. Do they have a star running back?
No.
Look at the Chiefs. Look at the Rams. Well, last year's Rams, not this year's. You get the point. You don't pay those big money because let's just say, unfortunately, look, if Saquon's not on the team next year, it's going to be a very different team. And I do think Daniel Jones will be worse if Saquon is not on the team. But here's what I do if I'm Joe Shane if they don't re-sign him. I invest that money, the Saquon money, into interior offensive line.
Bingo.
Because you have your two tackles in the future in Andrew Thomas and Evan Neal. You have your center for a couple years, which I really like, Nick Gates. You put him for a year or two. Look, great story. I don't even know why he's not in the Comeback Player of the Year award. It's ridiculous that he's not. I like Ben Bredesen for a year or two there. And then you put you get Ben Powers. And then you also, let's just say, sign some more offensive line depth, which gives Daniel Jones more room to throw the ball. And you maybe use your late third round pick on a running back in the draft. Because if you have a good offensive line, that makes the running back so much better. But going to be a very different offense without Saquon if Saquon is not on the team. What do you think, Patty?
I'll tell you what, I would not pay Saquon McCaffrey money, which reportedly is what he's looking for.
I wouldn't either.
I went and I did an article that's up on Giants Country. What is his market value? And okay, first off, I'm not so sure he has that top end speed anymore. Even though he had, more rushing yards, I think he finished with fourth in the NFL versus McCaffrey finishing sixth. But McCaffrey had a better yards after contact average, something like 3.09, whereas Barkley was at 2.75. McCaffrey had 7 more forced missed tackles and 44 fewer rushing attempts, more first downs, 73 to 66. And then the receiving aspect, this to me is where McCaffrey really earns his money. He is a polished route runner. All right. His 83, he caught something like 83.6% of his pass targets to Barkley, 78, 6 receiving touchdowns to Barkley, 0 this year. Half the drop passes. Barkley had 6. McCaffrey had 3. I mean, I can go on and on, Sam. That's where you pay, if you're going to pay big bucks for a running back, you get somebody who can do it all. Now, I understand that the Giants didn't deploy Barkley as much as a receiver. But
Which
when he did,
looking back, I'm still shocked they didn't do that.
Yeah.
Because that almost shows that they want to keep him long term if they're not just pounding the ball with Saquon to boost his value up, to maybe do. I know it doesn't happen in the NFL, but I still think they should do sign and trades.
A sign and trade for Barkley?
I would love that if you're going to get rid of him, you get something out of him.
Well, yeah, you would want to get something. But, here's the other thing that kind of like blows my mind. If these reports about him wanting McCaffrey money are true, Derrick Henry's making about 12.5 or something like that. He led the league in rushing 2 years in a row. Saquon's agent supposedly thinks that he's worth 16 over a guy that's won the rushing title 2 years in a row. I'm sorry. I'm not buying that. If I'm the Giants and his agent digs in and says, I want 16 for my guy, I tell him to take a walk.
I think Saquon's agent is being smart. Kim is going to get him the money because a team's going to pay for him. But McCaffrey's also in a perfect position for him. He's got a great all-around roster where the Niners are able to trade for him and succeed and pay him because you have that kind of roster. The Giants don't have a deep roster right now.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
The Giants, that's the problem with Saquon and Jones right now. Where this is Joe Shane's biggest test.
Yeah. And I go back to, I always make this comparison. When the Giants drafted Daniel Jones, they didn't have a team to put around him. And you look at Josh Allen. Okay, they had to add the receiver, which was the final, the cherry on the cake, so to speak. But you look at Mahomes.
You had a team around him. You had for the first 2 out of 3 his years, you know who Daniel Jones' offensive coordinator was? Jason Garrett. He was probably put in the worst possible situation. Yeah, well, now you see him actually do well. Look, I want Jones to be the guy. I have been very outspoken about this. But if I see signs that he's not, I'm going to tell the truth. I'm going to think that, okay, we're going to have to draft a quarterback or trade for one. But that's why I want to sign him for a short-term deal.
Mm-hmm.
So if he's not, because it's not just a 1-year wonder. Because if they say, okay, he's not, then you go trade him for a Caleb Williams quarterback kind of guy next to the 2024 draft in Detroit.
What's interesting about Jones, I saw something on Twitter today where there was a discussion by a couple of content creators, and they were like, well, you have to give Jones at least a 4-year deal to spread out the money on the cap. No, you do not. There are ways to get the cap numbered where they need to be.
And I think Joe Shane will do that.
Yes, you.
I don't think. Don't like to say one. I don't think Joe Shane is going to pay him McCaffrey money without some type of. If he get them both on the team signed for cheap. Oh, cheap's all relative here.
Yeah,
but I don't see. I want Saquon back at the right price.
The price has to be right, and
right.
And you listen to Shane, when he spoke last week, he didn't sound overly optimistic. Even at the Senior Bowl this week, when he talked, he says, "Oh, we'll continue to talk and try to bridge the gap," which to me suggests that the reports about the Giants offering about 12.5 per year, and
I would have taken that if I was him.
Listen, it's either that or what's going to end up happening is he's going to end up having to play on the franchise tag at 10 million, which means he's going to lose money.
But then he's getting more money in the future. That's the thing with him. He's going to get more money in the future. But Saquon's also a businessman. You have to think about like this. Let's just say he plays for, I don't know, the Buffalo Bills next year. And this is no discredit to the city of Buffalo. Where is he going to be more marketable, branding-wise?
Good point.
Let's just say take that $2 to $3 million less, or take the $4 million more, 3 to 4, in a place like Buffalo. Okay, Buffalo's really. I don't want to be mean to the city of Buffalo, but you don't have a mega market like New York where you can make those deals and those business moves that could probably get you more money in the long run.
Yep. Yeah.
I'm sure he's considering all aspects. He wants to be a Giant for life. I want to see him in a Giant uniform for life. But McCaffrey really just destroyed the running back value.
Well, McCaffrey's a special talent. I mean, even though he's had some injuries, he's a special talent. Saquon had the potential to be there, but the injuries, I think, really did a number on him. Just not this, you see some of it, but there were times last year I thought he was brought down by his ankles.
I think this, Patty, I think this is his best career season last year.
Yeah.
Not just stats wise, you see it. He's back. But can he do it for back-to-back seasons? That's what we have to see.
Yeah. And it's a similar question with Daniel Jones. I know a lot of people are like, okay, Daniel had a great year. Well, Daniel
back-to-back years, which I think he can.
Well, here's the thing with Daniel, though. Daniel, most of his throws were done on his first read. When you took away his first read and you forced him to go to a second or third read, that's where he ran into a few issues. Now, I always equated to they started from scratch with him, even though it was his fourth year in the league.
I really count that as his rookie year. As weird as it sounds, that is basically his rookie year.
So, I mean, they're starting from scratch with him. And look, Daniel, to his credit, came in and worked his tail off. I think we can all agree.
Yeah,
and the fact that he was able to do what he was able to do with the receivers that he had and the inconsistencies on the offensive line, I mean, I tip my cap to the guy. I really do. And he stayed healthy for the first time. So I tip my cap to the dude.
And turn the ball over, which is awesome.
So, but we'll see what happens. I'm confident that they'll get Jones done. I know from the Senior Bowl, Shane said that
Jones is the quarterback next year.
He'll be the quarterback.
Yeah. I think the only question is Saquon.
Yeah, I feel confident. As a matter of fact, it's interesting. Shane said that they haven't had conversations with Jones's reps yet. I have a feeling it's because they think maybe it won't be as complicated to get that done. Remember, Jones is repped by CAA, which I think is Tom Condon, who has a pretty good working relationship, if I'm not mistaken, with the Giants.
I thought he was repped by Jimmy Sachs.
Maybe it's Jimmy's. It's CAA, so it's all the same family.
But Jimmy Sachs is gonna want a lot of money.
I mean, My point is that CAA
Yeah, they work well with the
historically
Giants.
works well with the Giants. You know, like
Not they show
Rosenhaus works well with
very
them as
well with the
well.
Giants.
Rock
Rock Nation-
Nation, who
Rock Nation
represents,
has 3 Giants athletes.
they've got,
Andrew Thomas, Aziz, and Saquon.
yep. And I'm concerned about those 3 negotiations. I'm not going to lie.
I believe Andrew Thomas is a Giant for life.
Well, listen, if they don't get him, I don't think they'll extend him this year. You know, even though he's eligible to be extended this year, I would wait. You know, get Dexter done first. Dexter to me would be a higher priority.
Andrew will be a Giant for life. I strongly think that.
Yeah, but Dexter's got to get done before you do Andrew.
Dexter has to get done. I would start negotiating with Xavier.
I would wait on Xavier only because he's coming off of that hand injury and he's going to be around. And he said he's going to continue to rehab that hand. I would wait another year and see how that rehab goes before I extend him. But, you know.
You want to know who we're not talking about, who I'm not quite sure is going to be a Giant next year?
Who?
I don't have any information on this. Everyone about to say. I don't know if Julian Love is going to be a New York Giant.
You know, I feel the same way. That's so funny. I feel the same way.
But did you see what he said at Good Morning Football today?
I did, yes.
It was a blast.
For those of you who missed it, Julian Love basically dissed the Eagles and said, look, Nick Sirianni is not all that. He's got a loaded roster, and you guys could coach him. You know, you guys being the host of Good Morning Football. I was like, you go, man. No, I agree with him.
I still think he's good, but I don't think he's all that.
Julian is not a bad player, good leadership, good locker room presence. But I'm with you. I think if somebody comes along and drives I could see Chicago maybe coming after him because he's from that area, you know. So I could see him. You know, every year.
They drafted Dave Belton last year, who played pretty well when McKinney was injured. I would love to see Julian Love back, but I'm not quite sure if he's going to come back.
I'm with you on that. I don't have a warm and fuzzy feeling either right now. Now, maybe that changes.
Hopefully that changes. But what's his market value?
Julian's? I'd have to look that up. Let me see if I can get that on Spot Rack because I don't know off the top of my head what it is. I love
Spot Rack.
Let me see if he's got one on here. Julian Love. I've trying to come up with contract structures for Saquon and for Daniel. I didn't do Julian. Okay, Spot Rack says 7.9 million average annual salary. They're projecting a 5-year, 39.8 million contract. That's I think that would be about there.
I'd be fine. Pay him $6-7 million a year.
Well, see, here's the thing, you know, and for those who are on the pod, we're doing the Tana, Dog, and I. We're going to do the salary cap show later this month, probably after the Super Bowl. So I know a lot of you have been asking me about it. We're going to do the salary cap show, and I'm going to try to explain some of this stuff to you. But there are things you can do to boost up the APY, the average per year, and that's why I laugh. You know, I see people on Twitter saying, oh, you have to give Daniel Jones a 4-year deal. No, you don't. There are things you can do to boost the APY up without killing your cap and creating dead money down the line if you have to part ways with the guy. And it just takes a little creativity. I'll discuss some of that when we do the salary cap show. But, you know, everybody's like, oh, you've got to give Daniel 4 or 5 years. You don't. Because like you said before, Sam, if he flames out next year, if this year was an exception and he's right back to being the turnover machine or something like that, now you're stuck with him. If you've given him 5 years and $100 million and you've guaranteed 60% of that contract.
You look what Dave Gettleman did with Kenny Galladay. I mean, he's really
Thank you. What an awful contract.
At the time, I was happy. I was like, all right, we pay him way too much money.
Yeah. That contract is just, I call it the gift that keeps on giving. Actually keeps on giving kicks in the tush because the Giants are going to have to pay him that $4.5 million roster bonus that is due to him this year, regardless if he's on the roster. Now, the only way they get a credit is if Galladay signs someplace else and that he gets enough money to offset it, which I don't see happening.
Which I don't see
that
him doing
contract
that to be
is
smart.
that contract, man, woof, terrible. But they are going to. I would be surprised if they don't get out of it this year, and I would also be shocked if they don't make him a post June 1st cut, because that's where they stand to get a lot of money back on him. Not to mention, you use that money to pay your draft class, and you have money now to get you through the summer and the start of the season. And by the way, speaking of money, can we all agree that Joe Schoen did a magnificent job this year of not having to touch Galladay's contract to create more cap space?
I don't know how he did it.
I don't know how he did it either. I mean, there was cap gymnastics. I suppose if I go back and I look at the transactions, I could piece it together, but I tip my cap to him.
Also, you want to talk about free agents here. What do you do with Darius Slade? I don't see them resigning him.
No, he's not back. I'd be stunned if he's back. You're going to I think you've got to upgrade the receiver group. I would bring Hodgins back. Hodgins is an exclusive rights free agent. Wandale will be ready at some point. I don't know if he'll be ready to start the season. So you'll have Wandale.
I bring back Sterling Iser as your wide receiver coach, or one more year out of minimum vet.
I would give Sterling, if Sterling's willing to take a vet minimum type of deal,
I think he would be.
I think he would be too. I would give him a chance to make the roster, kind of like what they did with Mario Manningham a few years ago. I would give him a chance. I mean, he's been a great teammate, and I know he wants to finish his career as a Giant. But you got, to me, what I would do. You draft a receiver. You have to draft a receiver on day one or day two.
I don't know if you draft a receiver day one.
Maybe day two. I was going to say day one or day two. And you get yourself a veteran. Now, I know the free agency class right now is not very good. It's not a good class for receivers. But you never know who's going to become available, because there's going to be cap cuts made. Maybe DeAndre Hopkins becomes available via trade, although I'm not.
You could trade a second and either your third round pick or the Chiefs' third round pick for DeAndre Hopkins. I do that.
I would take the gamble.
Take a gamble. Because we look what he was able to do when he was healthy. He was easily a top end receiver in this league.
Yeah. If he's healthy, I would look, even if it's just for a stopgap, for 1 or 2 years or something like that, I would take that gamble. Me personally. I mean, like you said, for a third and a conditional fifth, I'd have no problem with that. Giants.
I said second, but I would rather have a conditional fifth.
Well, I mean, conditional fifth next year.
Oh yeah.
In 2024. So, because you're gonna probably, if you end up losing Saquon, you're going to get probably a third. I would think you would get a third round pick, depending on. At least.
So you have 3 third round picks that.
No, it would be 2024. It would. You wouldn't get the pick. I forgot that. Yeah.
You're gonna get I like my third round picks because you can trade those picks up.
Mm-hmm.
I also think I forgot how much money Darius Slade would have to sign for the Giants to get an additional third rounder out of him.
I'd have to work the formula out. That formula is so tricky. I still, after all these years, I mean, Nick Corte of Over the Cap knows it inside out. I've started to learn it a little bit, but it's just so true. It also depends on what else they sign, who else they sign and whatnot. So, there's a lot of factors that come into it. All right, listen, let's take a quick break. I got a commercial I need to run. When we come back, those of you in the chat room, start posting your questions. Sam and I will try to answer your questions as best we can. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Hey, Giant fans, this year, the only app you need at your Super Bowl party is FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. We're really excited about our new sports betting partner. And FanDuel has so many great features that make betting on sports fun and easy. Bet on everything from the money line to point spreads to who will score a touchdown. The FanDuel Sportsbook app is safe, secure, and super easy to use. Best of all, you can get paid your winnings instantly. So go ahead and download FanDuel right now so that you can bet Super Bowl 57 with a no sweat first bet. You'll get up to $3,000 back in bonus bets if your first bet doesn't win. Join FanDuel today at fanduel.com/lockedon to claim your no sweat first bet on Super Bowl 57. That's fanduel.com/lockedon. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Hey, Giant fans, you probably already know this, but if you don't, I'm on social media. You can find me on Twitter at Patricia_Traina, Traina. I'm also on Instagram. You can find me at Patty Traina, PATTITRAINA. And the Locked On Giants podcast has its own Instagram account now at Locked On Giants. Check them out. We have video clips, audio clips, pictures, all kinds of cool stuff. You will not want to miss it all off season long into the spring and into the summer and the regular season. So come by, check us out, like and follow, and we will see you on Instagram. All right, everybody, welcome back to the Locked On Giants podcast, Locked On Giants Live. I'm Patricia Traina, your host. Sam Prince is my guest, and I appreciate having y'all with me on this Thursday night. Let's get to a couple of your questions. Sam, I'm going to ask you to help me out with these questions, all right? I want to get your opinion as well. Let's start off with one from Papa Guzzo, Rosario Guzzo. I call him Papa Guzzo because I'm adopting him. Even though he might not want another child, I'm going to adopt him. Papa Guzzo says, I think we trade down our 25th first round pick. Do you agree? You know what? I could see the Giants trading down in the first round. If they get an offer that would give them like maybe, I don't know, an extra second or something, I could see them making that move. What do you think, Sam? Would you trade down at number 25 if you got a good offer?
It depends who's on the board.
Okay.
It depends who's on the board, who's available, who they're targeting, what they're getting back. If you're getting back a very good value second round pick, I would do that. If you're getting back maybe okay, you're getting back maybe a haul, a couple thirds, 1/3 this year at 2024, I would do that. Also depends on who you get in free agency, what happens then. So I can't really make that decision now until I really see the next couple of days and really see where players are falling in mocks.
I base my answer on the fact that usually, not always, there are exceptions, the grades, when you start getting down to 25, 26, 27, they tend to cluster together. So if the grades are clustered to where it doesn't matter, I would make the trade. But you're right. It does depend on who's on the board. Look, we can all agree that the Giants need to get a receiver. They need linebacker help in the worst way. We could probably all agree
I
that
think they're going to draft Drew Sanders out of Arkansas.
Okay, all right.
I want to see Drew Sanders or Trey Simpson out of Clemson. I think those two linebackers, one of those two will be a New York Giant if they don't get the receiver round.
All right. Well, you're on record now, so we'll see, we'll come back to this pod and we'll see if you're correct. But
I can change and like after the combine, but what I've been seeing from a Senior Bowl and college, those are my two favorite linebackers in the draft. Personally, I don't know what Joe Shane thinks. He may think something different. He may know something I may not know.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look, I'm just now starting to get into my draft prep over on Giants Country. Nick Filato is starting to roll out some of the profiles. So I read those profiles and I'm starting to get some ideas. But I'll tell you one guy that I really hope, and I think he's the Minnesota center, in college, John Michael Schmidt, is it?
Yes. Yeah. But
I've already
one of my favorite linebackers in the draft was Devin Lloyd, who's making a huge impact on the Jacksonville Jaguars. Falls to 27. So I think a sneaky good linebacker can fall to 25.
Well, I would like to see the Giants pick up a true center. And that John Michael Schmidt, the more I read about him and I pulled up some of his film. Look, no disrespect to Nick Gates. Everybody here knows how I feel about Nick Gates. I don't know that
I feel very high on him.
I don't know if he's going to come back. I had him on the show a couple weeks ago. I don't know if he's going to come back. Feliciano, I have a feeling they bring back Feliciano, but on another like 1-year deal. Draft a true center because look, every center they had this year was really a guard that converted to center. I want a guy who's done it in college. So that's how I feel.
I want Nick Gates back on this team.
I would like him back too. Don't get me wrong. Everybody here knows that I'm a big Nick Gates fan. I mean, I don't hide my fandom for Nick Gates, but money wise, and Nick keeps telling, when he was on the show, he said he likes playing center. Now he'll play anywhere. I mean, what he said to me is, I'd rather be on the field than on the bench.
Platforms, and he likes being versatile because I asked him about it, and he said, it works to my benefit whether teams want me to be. I don't remember his exact words. He said something like this, that he said teams like that I could be a guard or a center because that just makes me more versatile in this league.
Yeah, and that's a feather to his cap. But then the other thing is does he want to be a starter? Can he be a starter on this offensive line? I mean, if they don't bring back Feliciano, you would think that would be the natural spot for him. Glowinski's locked in for another year. Left guard, you get the impression they want Zudu to eventually take that role over, although Bredesen played well enough, I think, to hold it again.
You're going to have Bredesen as your right guard. You're going to have Zudu as your left guard. I am everyone knows I'm a huge Shane Lemieux fan.
Okay.
But
all right.
I would be shocked if he's on the roster week 1 of the 2023 season.
Of who would be on the roster?
Shane Lemieux.
Oh yeah, Shane. I don't think he's going to be on there. I'm with you on that.
I'd be shocked.
Yeah, unfortunate, but I think I agree with you on that. I think they maybe move on from
last year, and he didn't play. Everyone knows Shane Lemieux is just love the dude. I don't remember. I'm going to look up his cap hit now.
It would be minimal because he's on his rookie deal.
Yeah, he's on his minimal. He's got a year or two left. I see this have a mill or two. You're going to cut him.
Yeah, I think you might be right. Although who knows? Maybe they keep him for depth. I don't know, but they got to add to that interior.
For them to keep him for depth, but I don't see it.
Yeah, I think you got to upgrade. The injury history would worry me. I mean, he rushed back from that turf toe injury and that sprained foot, and very unfortunate with him. But anyway, all right. Gabe has a question about T. Higgins. Do you think T. Higgins is in play? His contract is going to be up next year, and the Bengals won't be able to pay him because they have to pay Chase and Burrow. Thoughts? All right. So T. Higgins, I think he's under contract for another year, right? Let me look that up real quick.
Yes.
So you're saying trade for T. I don't think the Bengals would trade him. I'd be surprised if they did.
I don't think they would trade him to the Giants if they trade him to any
T. Higgins. All right, so he's a second-round pick.
The Giants aren't at the position yet where you trade for one wide receiver and they're this instantly good team. They have an average besides Andrew Thomas and Evan Neal. Those are your only two locks of the line. Your D line is good. You still need a better secondary, which I've been very adamant about. Who's your wide receiver too?
Do you think Hodgins can be wide receiver too?
I think eventually.
Okay. So Wandale will eventually be your slot guy.
Wandale will be slot. I like Bellinger.
Bellinger's your tight end. You probably need a second tight end, I think, though, right? Unless you want to roll with Cager.
The Giants go and get a tight end like Irv Smith Jr. or Hayden Hurst if they really want to be fun with it.
I just did coming out on Giants Country tomorrow. I just reviewed the Giants tight end. Cager's a guy that's intriguing. Former wide receiver who converted. I could see him maybe getting a chance to compete. I wasn't overwhelmingly, impressed by that.
Bulldog.
Something about those schools, man. They're just football factories. It's funny. SI did a series a couple of years ago about football factories for each position, and I think Georgia. I want to say they were defense. Georgia was defense. Penn
They're you.
State was
They're the you.
linebacker U. Georgia, I think, was
They're
everything
the
else.
you. I mean, you look at every position except you look at every position in the league. You have a top besides quarterback. You over the last besides quarterback at every position they have a top 10 player
Right.
basically.
All right. Here's an interesting proposal from Karn Terrier Mom. I'd keep Bredesen at left, and I'd also move Evan Neal to right guard and draft a new truck tackle.
Guys, why are we giving up on Evan Neal right away? It's 1 year.
Yeah.
Thomas was not the greatest over 1 year. Look, everyone's praising him now. When I was one of the only ones in the world that was a day one Andrew Thomas supporter, and I'm a day one Evan Neal supporter, and I'll keep being that, guys. Have patience. He's a rookie right tackle.
And he was injured.
Exactly.
People, watch the film. If you watch the film when he came back, how many times did we see him bending at the waist? He wasn't doing that earlier in the season, except for that Dallas game. That's where you really saw it. But he got better. He started to bend at the knees. And then once that knee got messed up, he came back. That knee was never the same. So you don't think that affected his technique?
Fine.
I'm not ready to give up on Neal at right tackle.
Why are we giving up? He didn't even play a full season, and he's a rookie right tackle
with an injury.
Exactly.
I mean, we saw how Andrew Thomas bounced back. And Andrew had the ankle, if you remember. He had all kinds of injuries too that he finally had to get.
I didn't realize that he was playing with an ankle injury his rookie year.
No, nobody knew. Yep. Nobody knew. All right. The Earl 14 sends shout out to you about your Thibodeau draft announcement. I'll tell you, man, everybody was watching that. We were ready to run through a wall with your enthusiasm. You were just that whole video, and I was laughing because there was a piece there where Eli stood up to kind of like give you a hug and you were so excited. It's like, I don't know if you just kind of didn't realize it or whatnot. And I was laughing. I'm like, oh my God.
I gave him a hug. Don't worry.
Okay. All right. You don't want to diss Eli. Eli's the dude, man. So that was that video. I wish I had a clip of it. I don't have it. I should have brought one up, but it was just awesome. I do have the pictures though. The pictures did make the wire. So pretty interesting here. All right. Folks, put your questions in the chat box. We will work them into the show. Sam, let's talk about year 2. Right now, the Senior Bowl is going on. I know you've been tuning in. Who are some of the names that you've been watching and that you like so far?
Well, there's been a lot of names. For me, it's ultimately going to come out who I really like at these next couple of days. But who do you like? Let's start with you.
Oh, gosh. Let me see. There's a cornerback.
From Miami.
Darius Rush. Is that the guy from Miami? I know names. I don't have schools. Darius Rush was impressive, I thought. Matter of fact, Darius Rush is 6'2", and he's got a pretty long wingspan. So that's the guy that caught my eye. I'm trying to think who else. Max Duggan as a developmental quarterback. This is a question actually I asked yesterday.
I don't want to mind it.
Well, I was going to say, let me ask you about Max Duggan because, we talk about Daniel's going to be back. Tyrod's under contract. I don't know if it looks like Davis is moving on. Would you invest a day 3 draft pick in a guy like Max Duggan to develop?
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I would too. I think I definitely would. All right. So getting back to the list of guys I
really like outside, you probably, a lot of people never heard of him, is Jerrode Clark, defensive lineman, Coastal Carolina.
Okay. They've gone to that well a few times. Tank Dell, I know, Nathaniel Dell, or whatever, however you know him. He's a guy that he's smallish, but my gosh, that guy is watching him is like, woo, you just have fun watching him. I mentioned John Michael Schmitz at center. Yeah. Love that dude. Love that dude. Riley Moss is another guy, a cornerback. actually people are projecting him to go to safety, if I'm not mistaken. So Riley Moss is a guy that you could keep an eye on. Michael Wilson, a wide receiver, made some highlight reel type of catches. So those are just, and then let's see, a defensive tackle.
My ultimate favorite Senior Bowl player has been every other favorite player. University of Miami, their quarterback, Traquan Stevenson.
Okay.
He's the most impressive quarterback from, I think all the quarterbacks are looking very good. This could turn out to be a very deep quarterback class, which could work out in the Giants' favor. So you don't maybe have to invest that early draft pick into one. You could maybe find a diamond in the rust.
Mm-hmm.
And you can draft your linebacker, because I ultimately do think they're going to go with a linebacker or a wide receiver.
Right.
Maybe Joey Porter Jr., but that's really it.
Well, let me give you the name of a defensive tackle before I forget. I think he's from Wisconsin, Keanu Benton, because they're going to need to add some defensive, some depth at the interior, I think, because, I don't think Justin Ellis is back. And look, we saw what happened when Dexter and Leonard had to come out or needed blows. I mean, you need to add some defensive line depth, I think. And this guy Benton is just, I think I like the athleticism and the quickness. So those are a few of the names I think, kind of stood out to me. Now, it's early, obviously, but, and I'm sure people are going to disagree, but it's all good. I mean, that's the beauty of this time of year.
Yeah, no, I agree. But we'll see. We'll see. We'll see. Senior Bowl. I gotta watch them tomorrow. I'm a big Senior Bowl guy.
Yeah. Well, the game is on Saturday. I know I'm going to tune into the game.
Yeah, of course.
Kind of see how that falls into place. But certainly, the Senior Bowl, it's the official start of draft season. I mean, Senior Bowl, and then you've got the Combine coming up, or the Underwear Olympics, as they like to call it. And, this year it's going to be so hard trying to forecast what the Giants are going to do, because they can go in any number of directions at 25. In the past, it's been kind of easy to forecast it, but
I didn't think that Kayvon was going to be available.
I didn't think so either. When he was there, I was like, they're taking him.
Some of them.
But here's an interesting one. You want to talk about a what if scenario? If Kayvon and Sauce Gardner had been on the board at the same time, who do you take?
What I know now?
What you know now, who would you take?
I still take Kayvon.
You'd still take Kayvon?
The reason why I am the biggest believer in this, you build your team from the offensive line and defensive line outwards.
Okay.
I said Sauce is going to be an excellent player in this league. If they don't get Kayvon, I would love Sauce. But how do you start building your team with a quarterback if you can't put pressure on him, on the quarterback?
But on the flip side, if your corners are holding their coverage,
I see both arguments. Look,
yeah.
I didn't think Kayvon was going to be available. It's still mind-boggling.
I didn't think so either.
I thought the Giants were going to draft Sauce Gardner. I was confident they were drafting Sauce Gardner.
That's what I thought too.
I got to meet Sauce Gardner before the draft. I'm like, the Giants are drafting him in my head. I'm saying, I didn't think I was going to say Kayvon Thibodeau, because I thought he was going to Detroit.
Yeah. Yeah, I was shocked. I mean, Detroit, they grabbed Hutchinson. I kind of figured Hutchinson would be one of the top 3 off the board, but I think if I remember correctly, Houston, who did they pick? Did they pick Stingley?
I knew Stingley was number 3. I said Stingley's number 3.
Oh, so you had the inside scoop. You knew who was picking who.
I didn't know exactly, but I had a feeling. I was like, Derek Stingley is number 3. Was some people consider the best quarterback of the draft, highest upside. At the time, he had higher upside than Sauce. They're going to want that. They're going to want a quarterback. I just have this feeling, and he was right.
Well, that's you must be some sort of prophet, because that was impressive. But yeah, I mean, there was a big debate whether to go with Sauce or the edge rusher. Now I'm of the opinion, you go back and you look at the 2007 to 2011 teams, they were 3 deep in solid
Where
pass
do you win?
rushers.
The defensive line.
Yep, 3 deep.
And let's look at the 07 and 11 team. The Giants have star quarterbacks.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'd be curious. That would be a question I'd like to ask Shane what his philosophy is. He'll probably say both, but some people feel that you need the horses up front. And
I would love to ask Joe Shane a lot of questions.
So
but,
would I. So
time-
would I. If I could get him for 10 minutes, man, I could squeeze in a whole bunch of stuff that might provide some, you never know. Maybe when they do the draft preview and stuff, I have a list of questions I've been writing down, but I only get so many questions I can ask. But yeah, there are some people who believe that, you build from the outside in.
I am one of those people that you build from the outside.
Yeah, I mean,
inside out.
I think you build the trenches, because where did the Giants get pushed around by Dallas and Philly? In the trenches, right? So that's got to be, if you want to close the gap, that's what you got to do. You got to address the trenches.
That's what they're doing.
Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. Let's see if we have any questions here. Folks, if you have questions for me and Sam, pop them in the box and we will put them on the program here. Sam, we started to talk about this earlier, but I want to revisit it. Year 2, expectations for the Giants. And the question I ask of all my guests is, what constitutes progress in year 2? What do you view as progress beyond, of course, the wins and the losses?
Well, Patty, that's a very interesting question. You look at the New York Rangers last year, compare this to hockey a little bit. Let's just say the Rangers, I pay attention. I like hockey too. I know this isn't football, but it's a little kind of it's some crazy thing I'm about to say, but that's my madness. They made it to the conference finals. This surprise run that nobody expected them getting past round 1. I did it.
Yeah.
Nobody expects the Giants to win the playoffs. Nobody expected them to beat the Vikings. Is the season of failure next year if, let's just say, they win 10 games and lose in the wild card round? Is the season of failure? Because that's something we may have to think about if that happens. Because that's a real possibility. Or what if you lose in the divisional round again? Then you have to think about, okay, are we at a point where, as fans, are we expecting the Giants to go to the conference championship? Because they are not better than Philadelphia, and they are not better than San Francisco. And that's only 2 teams.
For me, progress would be closing the gap with Dallas and Philly. I don't know about anybody else. I am sick and tired of the Giants losing to those 2 teams.
It mind boggles me why the Giants lost on Thanksgiving. I truly think that was
week 3. They played them tight on week 3.
Week 3, I will excuse that terrible loss. I'm
just tired of it. And I'm tired of the Eagles killing the Giants.
That night. I was pissed off because I knew they still had work to do. You lose against Cooper Rush. And then you get embarrassed on Thanksgiving and you lose to Dak Prescott. No fault to Dak Prescott. Like him as a human being. But let's be honest. He is an average at best quarterback. He's only getting paid that much money because he's America's team's quarterback.
He ain't my team. I'm part of America. He ain't my team.
And then you look at the Eagles game. I knew we were going to lose that game on December 11th.
But not that bad.
I'm watching that game and saying to myself, they are miles ahead. Something that the Eagles do very well at They put you in your place. They say what your weakness is, and they show you your weakness. And the Giants showed everyone their weaknesses. And a player like Saquon, a player like Andrew Thomas, and all those guys didn't play great that game. No one played that great that game. And then you play them close, Philly, which, okay, boosts your confidence level as a fan, where, okay, you don't get destroyed against Philly starters, and you had all your backups in. You come off this momentum win against the Vikings, and your only touchdown is a Matt Breida touchdown. I think the Giants are at a point where now it's a catch-up game. And that's unfortunate. I have them neck and neck with Dallas, but Philly's miles ahead of everyone in the NFC East, the NFC, and the whole entire NFL. They're such a well-built franchise, and hopefully I do believe the Giants can get to that soon with Joe Shane and Brian Dable, but let's just hope the expectations aren't conference championships.
Well, you never know. I mean, nobody.
Oh, I would love to be wrong here.
Yeah.
But I'm just trying to be a little realistic.
But I think realistically, and it's a question I'd like to ask Dable and Shane next time they talk. What do you define as progress? And I know they're going to say, well, just getting better. Well, yeah, I get that.
Which, Patty, I agree with him. If I see the line play much better, if I see the receiver core, and if I see the secondary get better, I count that as progress. I agree with Shane Dable by saying that, because that shows you're building for the future right there.
Right. No, absolutely. All right, listen, everybody. We're going to take our final commercial break. When we come back, get your questions in. We'll answer the questions the rest of the way. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Hey, Giant fans, TurboTax experts can relieve you from the stress of doing your taxes, and they can file for you so that you can enjoy life without having to lose sleep at night over preparing and filing your taxes. That's right. With TurboTax, an expert will do your taxes from start to finish, ensuring that your taxes are done right, guaranteed, so that you can relax and focus on other things. Visit turbotax.com/guarantees to learn more about their guarantee program. Video meeting is required during tax preparation. Intuit TurboTax, full service products only. See turbotax.com for additional terms and conditions. All right, everybody. Welcome back to the LockedOn Giants podcast. LockedOn Giants Live. You got Patricia Traina and you got Sam Prince as my guest. And we are going to see what questions you guys have. So if you have a question, pop them into the box and we will answer as many as we can in these last few minutes that we have together. So let's see. I think I bookmarked one. Okay, here's one from Michael Sejuit. I hope I said that right. Thoughts on Aziz and his injury-plagued year after a healthy rookie year. I thought Aziz put on a little too much muscle too fast. I think I question whether that had something to do with it. Do you agree, Sam?
I don't want to say the muscle, but I think if he gets better through injury, you see how the rest of the defensive line plays with Dexter, Leo, and looks how Kayvon played with much better with Aziz. Because you're not double teaming Aziz, and you don't double coverage Kayvon because then you still have Aziz.
I mean, I like Aziz, but I questioned when he came in looking like the Incredible Hulk. I thought, okay,
he's massive.
Yeah, but sometimes when you put on too much muscle, that puts strain on your ligaments and stuff. And I just don't know. I mean, I'm not a sports scientist. I'm not a trainer. To me, it looked like that was part of the problem. And I spoke to people who said that, yeah, maybe he put on too much too soon. And maybe it would behoove him to take some of that weight off, because obviously the older guys they tend to take weight off as opposed to putting weight on. And not that Aziz is an old guy yet, but
I was like, Aziz is not an old guy.
So I don't know. I thought that was part of it. And again, I have no proof of it. This is just my guess.
I think he'll be fine.
But I don't know. That's just my guess here. Okay. Fabian wants to know, does Dable stay if multiple subpar seasons?
Whoa. Why are we talking about this? He had a great year. Why are we spreading this negativity in the air?
It's a what if question. And here's what I would say to this question, Fabian. Every season has its own story. Now, if next year the Giants don't win as many games, don't get to the playoffs, but the injury bug rips through that locker room again, do you want to get rid of Dable? I don't. If Dable goes all Ben McAdoo in year 2, do you want to get rid of Dable? Then yeah, maybe you could say, okay, maybe we made a mistake here.
Ben McAdoo's was not a competent head coach.
No, I know. I'm just using it as an example, though.
I don't even want to talk about that because that's just putting negativity in the air.
Yeah, I mean, look, I don't think they're going to underachieve. Look, are they going to be able to win every year? Well, the Patriots didn't make the playoffs this year, so
Patriots aren't a good team this year. They were average at best. Sorry, if I could.
People go in, teams go in cycles, so it's the Giants' time now. But Fabian, to your question, there would have to be something catastrophic to happen for Dable not to be back. I just don't see it happening. I think this guy's got control of the locker room. He knows the direction he wants to take the program in. I don't see, I'd be stunned. Let's put it to you that way. I just don't see it happening. So Scott Young wants to know, how do you guys feel about possibly bringing in a punter or drafting one to compete? I think Gillian is mediocre at best. I don't know if I would draft a punter, but I would definitely bring one in to compete. I was kind of surprised they didn't bring one in last year. Were you surprised, Sam, that they didn't bring in a punter to compete with Gillian?
I had a lot of faith in him, but there's a lot of free agent punters this year. I think they'll bring one in to compete, and ultimately, I don't see Jamie being our punter next year.
Yeah, I had my doubts about him. He was too up and down, did not have touch when they needed him to pooch it, and on half a field. He could boom it, which was great, but he just lacked that touch. And
I don't he's a free agent this year. I don't see them re-signing him.
Well, here's the other thing I want to point out about the punting operation, and I don't mean to sound critical here, but what did you think of the job Casey Kreider did this year as a long snapper? I'm going to see if you thought what I thought.
I liked him. I mean, there's no Zach Diassi you have for 15 plus seasons who's had stable special teams captain right there. But I think his first season he played pretty well.
I thought some of those snaps were slow and low. I mean, I work, I do a newsletter called Inside Football, and I have, guys who have played the game who contribute. We write up player evals after every week. And right now we're working on our season end issue. And I went back and I looked at the tape because a guy who does special teams said to me, my God, look at the snaps from Casey Kreider. He says they're slow and low. It's a miracle that they haven't had more blocked punts. So I went back and I looked, and
right.
and especially with Jamie, just taking the punt. If the punt is off target, that now delays his timing. So I just wonder if what was at fault here. That's just my take.
I don't know if Casey's going to be a long snapper next year. We'll see.
Casey's an unrestricted free agent, former Pro Bowler, but and I'm not trying to compare him to Zach, because I thought Zach was like the best the Giants have had in years, but certainly since Ryan Keel came along, but Casey last year, the punt snaps, I was like,
I don't see him coming back.
So, all right, Michael Sejuic wants to know about Ellerson Smith.
I think
guy's got to stay on the field.
You're right. If he can't stay on the field, he's gonna get cut.
I mean, my goodness, this is what 2 years in a row he's landed on IR. He's what he's. I look at Ellerson Smith and I see a guy who's kind of thin, and the first impression I had was, how's he going to hold up? How is he going to hold up to the rigors of playing?
There were a lot of people that was skeptical when Joe Judge had drafted him with Dan Gettleman. There was a lot of people that were skeptical about that drafting because of his size.
Yeah. So, I mean, now along those lines, we got a question about what will happen to both Ellerson Smith and Zimenez. Zimenez is a UFA. Smith is under contract. I think Smith comes back. You let him compete. Do you bring back Zimenez?
On a minimum deal.
You would?
On a minimum deal.
At a minimal deal. Because, I mean, were you surprised as I was that Zimenez made the cut ahead of Quincy Roche?
No.
You weren't. Why?
Because I think Zimenez is always that player, kind of like a Lorenzo Carter, who you're always waiting for them to break out, but they just never did. And I thought Zimenez maybe could have a little bit this year, but he did not.
I always thought Zimenez struggled against the run and made him one-dimensional. I mean, he to me, as a run defender guarding the edges, I was like never really wowed by what I saw from him. And I thought, maybe he would improve. And he did show a little bit of improvement, but not to what maybe I was hoping he would show. But, I don't know if he comes back. I think maybe they move on. Now, to be fair, he was coming from Old Dominion, which was a big jump. And, like the quarterback, he was in multiple systems here, at the pro level. But I just thought they could get a little bit more out of it.
Out of that 1 year deal minimum, I would do it.
If he's willing to take it. I mean, yeah, I'm with you. If he would take a veteran 1 year minimum deal. But I have a feeling somebody's going to overspend for him because that's edge rushers usually get paid. So, all right, Carn Terrier Mom, how do you think Dabbs feels about knowing if his DC will be back or not?
I don't think Wink is going to. I just saw a report while on commercial break that he's most likely going to get another interview with the Colts.
Oh, I mean, I think he's going to, and I know there was a report that he is one of the front runners. But here's my feeling. I think Dable has a plan if he loses.
Ultimately, honestly,
I don't want to lose him.
Saturday's the Colts head coach.
I don't want to see him go. I mean, would he go and maybe, I don't know, would he promote Wilkins, or would Wilkins go with Wink to Indianapolis? I don't know, but I think he's going to have a plan, Dable. I'm not totally concerned about what he would do. I hope Wink stays.
If Wink leaves, I would take Steve Wilkins.
That's a good idea. What do you guys think in the chat room? You guys like that idea, Steve Wilkins? I would. That's intriguing. I thought Wilkes should have gotten the head coaching job in Indy. Not Indy. I'm sorry, Carolina.
Yeah,
I was disappointed he didn't get it. I thought he earned it, but
I thought he earned it too. But ultimately, I think Frank Wright is a good coach in this league.
Yeah,
not have been fired.
Yeah. All right, here's an interesting one for you, Sam. Rank the Giants roster amongst the division minus the quarterbacks 1 through 4.
Rosters.
So
Philly 1.
Yeah, agree. Dallas 2.
Us 3. And Washington 4.
You would put Washington at 4? Okay. That's how I would rate it.
Ahead of Dallas by the end of next year, but not right now.
Yeah, I'm with you on that.
They're gonna lose Dallas Schultz. Beginning of the season, we will be a better team than Dallas.
Oh, I hope so. Dallas is going to have some cap issues that they have to resolve. So, I mean, I do not see Zeke ain't getting $15 million next year. Even with the Pollard injury, I don't see Zeke getting $15 million. They got some cap things they've got to work out. So, going to be interesting to see how they work that out. All right, Fabian wants to know: were you both Judge believers? That's why I asked a Dable question. Recall lots of fans saying Judge was the future.
Believer. I will be very. I will come out and tell everyone that I wasn't a Joe Judge believer. I thought he was the answer. I was just bought into this Joe Judge. We all were. You can't tell me at one point he enamored you with his speeches, with his culture building. But as soon as that preseason started, as soon as we saw play in the field, as soon as those press conferences hit after those losses, you knew he was a fraud.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. But here's the other thing, Sam. I think when Judge came in, at that point, the Giants were just stuck in such a rut. And we were looking for the slightest glimpse of hope that maybe things would be different. And he came in very polished. He had the speech, the proper fitting suit, blah, blah, blah. And everybody's like, yes, I believe. Maybe because, it's like sometimes you want to believe, even though you don't have reason to believe, if you know what I mean. So I think because the Giants had been in such a rut for so many years, there was hope that, okay, this guy's coming from the Belichick tree. Maybe, he's from the Saban tree. Maybe things will be different. So I think that's why, in retrospect, a lot of us.
But Dable's from technically the Belichick tree.
Yeah, but he's also from the Buffalo tree now. So he's got that.
But what do you consider the Belichick tree?
I mean, yeah, he is. But see, the difference here, I think, was, kind of like with McAdoo. When McAdoo came in, you figure, okay, he worked with McCarthy, who at the time was pretty successful. But the drawback is that McCarthy was all McAdoo really knew, because that's who he had worked with most of his career. All Judge really knew was Belichick and Saban. Dable has been around other coaching staffs.
I like that.
He's experienced the highs and the lows. So
that's why,
Judge.
That's
how I see it.
For you, losing the Super Bowl?
Yeah, that's how I see it. I mean, they lose to Kansas City, so he's been up and down, and I think he's learned from that. And the thing I like about Dable is if you lose, it doesn't eat at them to a degree, yes, but they channel it towards constructive. Constructive.
Yeah, you get better. I mean, yeah, I know it likes a loss.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think they're in good shape with Dable. I think they're in good shape with Shane. I am very, very interested to see what they do moving forward. Sam, any final thoughts you have regarding the season? What's up? What you're looking forward to? I mean, what do you want to see happen?
And Dable, we trust.
And Dable, we trust. You selling shirts?
I mean, if people are want to buy merch and Shane and Dable, we trust, then sure.
And Dable and Shane. I mean, Shane just, you got to like what he did last year with limited resources, no cap space, and, built up the draft cachet.
The true test year of Joe Shane, because if the Giants were terrible like they were supposed to, you could have just said and fall out and said, okay, that's not my team. That's a Dan Gettleman team right there.
Yes. All right, Sam, before we say goodbye, let's answer Papa Guzzo here. Who do you like in the Super Bowl?
I want the Chiefs to win.
Okay. For obvious reasons, I'm assuming.
Patrick Mahomes.
Can't root for the Eagles, right?
No, but Patrick Mahomes is also my favorite player, non-Giant.
Okay.
He's my favorite player who has never donned a New York Giants uniform. But the Giants don't play. I root for Patrick Mahomes.
All right. I have a dilemma this year. I am not rooting for the Eagles. I cannot root for the Eagles.
Whoa, why? Oh, here we go. Because Darius Tony?
No, I can't root for the Eagles.
Okay.
And
what's the dilemma?
If you were lined up with the Giants, you just can't. I mean,
I hate Eagles with a burning passion, but what's the dilemma? Because the Eagles are in the Super Bowl?
No, wait a minute. I'm going to tell you what the dilemma is. I'm going to tell you. Normally, I would say, okay, Chiefs all the way. But my brother is a Chiefs fan, and he has been so insufferable.
Oh, okay.
He has been so insufferable. Every time, like when the playoffs were going on, we have this group chat, and he would text me when I'm trying to work, and he'd be like, Don Wink screwed up. Don Wink screwed up, or Dable screwed, and then he would just get so insufferable.
And he doesn't like the Giants.
The funny thing is my father raised us both as Giant fans, but my brother always wanted to rebel. So he grew up a little bit liking the Jets. And so we were able to laugh at him because the Giants always owned the Jets. And then when he moved out to Colorado, he decided to take on a new team. And my husband and I bust on him because of all the teams he could pick. He picked the Chiefs, who were just coming off a Super Bowl. So we called them a bandwagoner. Because it's like, dude, why are you picking the Chiefs? Why don't you're moving to Colorado? Why don't you pick the Broncos? And so,
I mean, who would want to root for Patrick Mahomes?
Well, he was a bandwagoner, and he's just become insufferable. And it's like now when he texts me, I'm like, don't text me unless you want to talk about anything other than football, because I don't want to hear,
I want to see the Chiefs win so badly. I want to see Patrick Mahomes get his second ring so badly. I want him to become the Patrick Mahomes that he's supposed to be so bad.
I like Patrick, by the way.
Huh?
I like Patrick. I've always been a fan of his. I think he's a heck of a quarterback. I'd like to see him win, but then I got to listen to my brother the whole darn off.
You see the Eagles win?
No, I don't want to see. I don't want to see, if it were up to me, I would just bypass the Super Bowl altogether because that's the dilemma I'm in. No. I was hoping for 49ers Chiefs.
No, I was hoping for Niners Chiefs too. The worst Super Bowl for me was Super Bowl 52, even though that was an amazing game. Eagles Patriots. I don't like the Patriots. I hate the Eagles. I can't root for the Patriots because I get it. Some Giants fans say, "Oh, Sam, why do you hate the Patriots?" It's a B thing.
Yeah.
I don't like them because they were always so good, even though we beat them. All I knew was winning. I was like, I'm just tired of this.
By the way, in response to Jordan Zamidi's question here about the Empire State Building lighting up Eagles colors, I didn't like it. Come on, man. I mean, I know they also lit up in Kansas City colors after that, and that didn't get a lot of airplay, but awful. Come on.
Awful. That would never happen in Philly.
No, of course it wouldn't. Come on. I was very disappointed. And they're like, well, we lit up in Kansas City's colors. Shouldn't light up in anybody's colors unless it's
that was the
special.
Problem. Okay.
Like, I had no problem when they lit it up in
that is what you do. Let's just say the Yankees lose to the Astros last year. Would you light it up orange and blue?
I mean, look, there are exceptions. Like when they lit up for DeMar Hamlin, I was fine with that.
No.
I was okay with that.
Patty, that's a special circumstance. It's the Eagles going to the Super Bowl. That's what. Yeah, I'm like, Jordan. Yes, I thought that was a slap of the face, and I was disappointed in that. And I would bet someone lost the bet.
I maybe, I don't know, but whoever did it, whoever did it should start looking for another job because I think people are going to come after them and demand their resignation. But oh goodness. All right. Well, listen, Sam, it was great having you on the program. I really appreciate the time. I hope you had fun. Everybody who popped in, I hope you had fun as well. Don't forget, we are going to do the salary cap show. We're going to do that live. I'm going to bring back Tana and Dog for that show. It'll be after the Super Bowl. We just have to firm up the day. But that one, that's going to be a long show. I have a feeling we're going to go plus 2 hours plus on that one. So if you have questions, you can pop them in the community group on YouTube, just so I can pull the necessary materials for that. Sam, you're welcome to come back for that show if you'd like.
Let me know what it is. I'll try to make it.
Yeah, you're welcome. Maybe we'll ask Tommy G to come on as well. But everybody, thank you so much for tuning in to the LockedOn Giants podcast, LockedOn Giants Live. For Sam Prince, I'm Patricia Trainer. We will see you next week. Actually, I've got another show coming for you tomorrow, Giant fans. I owe you grades on defense and special teams, so that's up next. Make sure you tune in tomorrow. Take care, everybody.